Percocet Productions here, and we're going to be ranking all of the Red Dead Redemption 2 chapters from worst to best.
So this list is basically just going to consist of chapter 1 through 6. We're not really going to count the epilogues because, I mean, you basically take over with a new character.
Well, let's get right into it. I'm Jason.
And I'm Ethan.
All right, my least favorite chapter is chapter 5. This one just felt really out of place in a Red Dead Redemption game, honestly. I like it. It's unique, it's innovative, it's something different, but honestly, this island section did not feel very attached to the rest of the game. Like, it just felt like at some point it even just felt like a dream. Like, it really wasn't happening. Like, you met these new characters and they weren't really important. It was fun. One thing I did like about chapter 5 is once you got back, you had to refine the group, and they were held up, and Sadie kept the group together. That was really cool. Also, this is at the time when your TB, tuberculosis, really starts to kick in. Not as bad as it would later on, but you could
It's when you
tell.
learn about it.
Yeah, you could really tell how bad it was. I did I will say every chapter was good. There's not a chapter that was bad. But this really just felt like it was disconnected.
Mine was actually chapter 1.
Okay.
Honestly, the prologue was kind of very boring
It
in my
was
opinion.
long.
It was. I mean, it did set everything up, and you did kind of learn all the basic aspects, which a prologue does. But you couldn't explore. You couldn't go open world. I mean, you were just stuck in that one abandoned mining town, and it just wasn't, personally to me, that good. It was good by standards of the game,
Mm-hmm.
but in terms of story and things to do, I just didn't think it was all that good.
Yeah, you really didn't have a lot you could do at that point. Like, you weren't even open yet.
No.
The world really wasn't open, and I know a lot of people that dropped the game at this point because of this chapter 1.
Yeah, it's understandable. But
Yeah.
hold out a little bit, and then you really get rewarded.
Yeah, for sure. And well, that actually is my number 5. My second worst release favorite chapter is chapter 1. I gave it a slight edge over chapter 5, the island chapter, because I just like the setting of the snow a little bit more. I think I just felt that the snow setting was a bit fun. You had that, the first introduction to the Driscoll gang. And that's when you find Sadie, which was really cool. You also have the train heist, like that one train heist where you take over the train and you bomb it. I'm pretty sure,
Right.
and you get on top of it or something like that. You go through it. That was a lot. That was a really fun mission. You basically had also leaving that area, which was pretty cool, and then you get the foreshadowing of the Native Americans when they're looking down as you change your wheel. Also, the hunting mission where you're hunting with Charles the very first time you're hunting and you run into the bear.
Yeah.
I thought that mission was a lot of fun too. And it was just a really pretty scenery that you really wouldn't come to again, the chapter 1 scenery. But I can understand because prologue and story-wise, nothing really happened. It was just setting the stage, putting the pieces on the board of what you're going to be really going through. And it was very sad, not sad in the beginning, but it was very dark because people were dying, and
literally, I think the first scene was you carried a guy that was dying into the church.
Yeah. So I get it. It's one of the darker, downer type times of the game, and
It was.
it's definitely in the lower half.
Ours are actually flipped for 5 and 6. For number 5,
Makes
I put
sense.
chapter 5. I didn't like Gorma. Originally the plan was for Gorma to be its own island kind of thing where you could explore the whole thing and not a section, and there's supposed to be other shit to do on it, but I don't know, man. I just think it was kind of annoying to pull me away from the regular world. I didn't really like it.
You didn't feel connected to anything else.
No, and honestly, it almost didn't make sense. It really felt like it was kind of dumb. I will say, however, I think it was right before you get off the island when you're in the fort and you're shooting the cannons at the ship and shit.
Oh yeah,
That mission was actually really fun. That was
Yeah.
the most fun I had in that area,
Yeah,
and
that
that
was
was
a good
about it.
one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so I had to put 5 at 5.
I think 5 and 1 were clearly like the worst two. Like
Yeah,
they really, and that goes to show like how they just made you feel disconnected from what was to come in the rest of the game. Like,
and honestly, the
um,
prologue wasn't bad. It's just that you had no freedom.
yeah,
You
no
know.
freedom in an open world game. Like one of the best parts about Red Dead is the random stuff that can happen, and you just got like none of that at that point. None of that.
Yeah.
But now I say we get into like the really good stuff. It just picks up from here, really.
Yeah.
My number 3 or my number 4 is Chapter 3, Clemens Point.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, this one's good. This one's definitely really good. I think these next ones are really good, but the other
Mhm.
ones just outshined it for me. This chapter was the first time, spoiler of course coming, that a character died in the group. Sean, he died and was shot in the head, and that's basically the first time that things felt like, oh, anything can happen in this game.
Right. Right.
You had the Moonshine mission where you were like disrupting the distillery. You had the first bank robbery, the one that went really good, and it set up the future ones. You also had like when you were going to the next hideout, that was a lot of fun. Um, but I think that this chapter just set the stage for things that would come later. Like it was setting how chapter 1 was setting the stage for the whole game. Chapter 3 was setting the stage for the badge stuff to happen. Um,
Right. Right.
and that was Sean's death. The first bank robbery they felt really good with, and then they would not feel good anymore doing them. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Um, Number 4 for me, I actually did chapter 4.
okay,
Um, Very good chapter. I'm honestly anything from 4 to 1 is actually very good to me.
right,
I just it was hard for me to rank these ones. But for me, I think the reason I put it lower was because of we already we already have spoilers, so I'll just say because of Jose and Lenny's death. I mean,
yeah,
I loved Lenny, I loved Jose, and the fact that they were both killed off in one shot was kind of rough. And for something so stupid, I mean, honestly, Jack getting kidnapped and him being with Angela Bronte and all that shit, I kind of thought it was stupid.
okay,
I just think it was kind of dumb. But the chapter itself was very good, so I'll leave it on the lower end of the very good chapters.
yeah. I can see that being like you also had Carrion's death. I know somebody did
Oh
not
yeah,
like
yeah.
he's saying Carrion, Carrion. But you had a lot of things. You also had like the fancy party stuff going on. You were on the
Yeah.
boat and you were in a fancy house. You had to get cleaned up. That was kind of fun too. But I can see why like Jose and Lenny's death were very big negatives for you and rough to get through.
It was rough, man. Red Dead really hits you hard.
Yeah, like they said, oh, we're gonna kill one character. Okay, you know how we can top that? We'll kill two characters, and you'll
For
like
real,
both of
man.
them.
Yep. It wasn't like Micah. God
Yeah, yeah,
forbid it
yeah,
had to
yeah,
be
yeah.
Micah.
Micah, Micah like, oh man, Micah was,
He's a
mm,
dickhead.
yeah, rat bastard, right? Rat
Yep.
bastard.
Hated him.
It was nice to get revenge on him.
Oh, it was too, man. Gun that motherfucker down right in the snow.
I wish Arthur would have killed him, though, to be honest. I wish
Yeah.
Arthur would have killed him. But chapter 2, well, number 3 for me is chapter 2.
Spoiler.
Horseshoe Overlook. I love this location. It's basically the first time where Pandora's box is truly opened and you can go do whatever you want. Um, there were a lot of fun missions in this section too, like Lenny being drunk, that whole like iconic Lenny. That you really got into it big with the O'Driscolls. This is when you're introduced to Carrion. Um, and you take him hostage and stuff. This was a really long section too. Like it was
It
very
was.
long.
I remember it was very long. Good camp too.
Yeah,
The camp
yeah.
the camp was like a perfect camp setup.
Maybe the best campsite, Loki.
Yeah.
Also, you got that nice fishing scene with Jack, and then when the Pinkertons pull up,
Oh yeah, yeah.
that
It
was
really foreshadows a lot, doesn't it?
yeah, really, Really, really good mission there, and just the perfect, I would say, the perfect true intro to the game. Like there was no
Oh, yeah,
chapter one was, chapter one, but this was really when things get really really like,
exciting.
yeah. You also got
Um,
like when you rescued Micah and Sean from being hanged, and you like get another train robbery. Um, and you also start with the like debt collection, right, with Strauss.
yeah, you killed him.
Basically, yeah,
Fuck.
basically. Man,
It really set up like everything.
this was such a good chapter, yeah. And then like eventually you go to Rhodes, but it was Valentine that you were near, right? That's the
Yeah,
one.
yep.
Man, Valentine was such an
It was a
iconic,
nice town.
iconic town. It was so good, man. And everyone
Alright.
was still alive at this point. Everyone
Yeah,
was still
for real.
alive.
Alright. So that takes us to my number 3. I actually put chapter 6, the last chapter.
Wow. Okay.
Um, yeah, I had a rough time with the last chapter. I really liked Arthur. Probably one of my favorite characters ever in a game, and
For sure.
man, it was rough. It was it was rough.
Beyond rough, really.
I mean, and I think the only reason I wasn't, chapter 6 wasn't my favorite was because of the fact that it seemed like Micah got off scot free. Like when you played the game and you didn't get to the epilogue yet to get your revenge, it really looked like he was going to get away with everything.
Yeah, that's true.
And that was the worst part is you just watched Arthur die and there was no repercussion. Nobody did
Yeah.
anything. Dutch just kind of said fuck you, and it was hard to watch. And honestly, it was a very good chapter. I did like the chapter. I'm not saying I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I just think the other two chapters I have above it are better in
The
my
good
opinion.
times. They were the good times.
Yeah, exactly.
They were the good
And
times.
my number one is the number one for it edged out the other one for one specific reason. And we'll
Okay.
touch on that when we get there.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, chapter 6 is very good. Like we said, that the top 4 are just great, like all-time game moments, sections, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Hmm.
Fantastic. But my number 2 is actually one that we went over earlier. I think our tops are flipped for specific reasons, because I like the bad stuff.
Yeah, I know.
I like the bad stuff. My number 2 is chapter 4, Saint Denis. Honestly, I like the fancy party stuff. I like when you were playing poker on the boat. That was a lot of fun. And honestly, the main reason why I put this so high is because this is when things really start to hit the fan. Like, really, really starts to hit the fan. This is when everything was lost, basically. This is when you reached your lowest as a part. Dutch basically
Right.
excuse me, Dutch is basically like, we just need one more big heist, and then they're like, okay, let's do this big heist, and it's the freaking like Citibank, the big bank, and that's when the Pinkertons pull up with Hosea, and Hosea dies, and you think, okay, Hosea is dead, nothing else is gonna happen. Lenny gets shot just running, like it's not even a big
Yeah.
death scene. He
There
just
was
dies.
no climax, nothing. He just died.
He just
And you
died.
just
It's
had to
like,
keep going.
holy crap, like this is legit. This is real. Like that's about
It
as
was one of those
real as it
things where if
gets.
you weren't paying attention, like if you were looking at something else, you wouldn't have even known that he
Yeah.
died.
And that's what I love about Red Dead, is that like that just kill a character on the side just like that. Yeah, it's brutal because I
Hmm.
love Lenny and Hosea, but man, you got to have that. In a game like Red Dead where things are supposed to be like, the Wild West, it has to be wild. Um
Right.
and you also had that like trolley where like you were on the trolley, and then it crashes and you're shooting through the streets.
Oh yeah,
Um
yeah. Yep.
and I just love how different every single section felt. Like section 2, 3, 4, and 6, they were all in the same map basically. They were all in the same world, but they still felt different somehow. San
Yeah, it was like
Denis was,
all totally different.
yeah, San Denis was like fancy town, and then you had like just the Valentine, which was just like, the main like western town, and
Hmm.
They did a good job at making things very unique, and chapter 4 was definitely one of my favorites for that, like, things hit the fan moment.
Right, right. That's understandable. Um, my number two was actually chapter two.
Yeah.
Um, I loved Valentine. The town itself was great. Um, the bank robbery was pretty fun. Um, Funny enough, Valentine was where I had my first glitch. I have a video of it still. My horse ended up just randomly floating, and and then like a guy bumped into where he would be, and the horse just fell to the ground and like ragdolled.
Yeah.
And it was just a fond memory because it was like the first one I saw. And I'm like, huh, that's pretty funny. But it was really good. Valentine was good. Times were good. Everything was great. It was just one of those things where everything was going good
Yeah.
until Strauss sent you to collect money, and
Yeah.
that was like the Kickstarter for everything getting shitholed.
And you didn't even know that things were bad when that happened. Like,
No,
you had no
no,
clue what was going to come next.
it
Just no
that was
clue.
like foreshadowing at its best.
Yeah, that chapter foreshadowed everything. Like, with the
All of it.
Pinkertons,
I mean,
literally.
all of
Yeah, crazy chapter.
it. Hmm.
Now, we have different number ones,
Yeah.
but let's see. So, my number one, my favorite chapter in Red Dead 2, I actually tossed and turned between chapter 4 and chapter 6. Chapter 6 is my favorite. And the reason why is because, man, this is when the gang, which like they went through so much bad things, and they should have went through so many bad things. I mean, they were a Wild West gang in the end of the Wild West. Everything went bad, and literally Arthur was just trying his best to hold things together, but things just constantly went bad. And this chapter is true defeat, like they lost and there's nothing else they can do, like, they completely lost. You also had the stuff with the Native American tribes. That's when they came into the game, so the foreshadowing from chapter 1 was finally like put together. um and Dutch is just like continuing his plans, and it just fails and fails and fails, and eventually you get to the point where, like, you have to face the Pinkertons. Like, you're finally facing them, and you get this epic mission where, like, it's by like the docks, I'm pretty sure,
Hmm.
and you're like shooting them down. You're with Sadie, whoever's left, really. um and Dutch really betrays you in this chapter. He really betrays you, and you have come to the realization that you're dying. This, like, chapter is the end for Arthur. um
Yeah.
and just slowly knowing that your time is ticking, that the wheels are turning and they're going to stop eventually. And Micah is just under your skin the whole time, is just fantastic writing. And, you reach the point where it's the final scene. And, when you're running with your horse and that music is playing, that slow music, amazing. And that's one thing we never really touched on, is how good the soundtrack is for this game.
Oh,
It's
for real. Honestly,
perfect.
like every chapter and every scene had like the perfect soundtrack to go with it.
Yeah, and that just shows the masterful composing of the guy his name is escaping me, but he's very famous. Um and you also have Molly O'Shea getting shot, right? That happened in
Oh
chapter
yeah.
6. Yet so much that went down, so many deaths, and then you finally have where you're trying to, end this. You're trying to help John escape, and if he should go back for the money. Um, and you're trying to hold off Pinkertons, and eventually you just reach the point where your horse dies, right? And the horse dying, who knew that a horse
Mhm.
dying could be so
That was rough.
emotional?
That was rough.
And that's when yeah, it's the end. It's the end. And I will say, if you got the ending where you die peacefully, that's good. But if, like, Micah shoots you in the face, that does kind of suck, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's awful. But
You get what you get.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Based on how you play the whole game. And yeah, love this, and I can see your point too, of how like Micah felt like he got off scotch free. Like maybe you have Arthur kill Micah and then die.
Yeah,
Um,
but it did set it up good for the epilogue.
yeah, it did. It gave the epilogue more of a purpose, really.
Right.
But yeah, that's my favorite chapter.
Okay. So my number one, if nobody's guessed it by now, is actually chapter 3.
Chapter
Yeah.
3.
I am not gonna lie, I really liked Sean. So watching him get his noggin blown off was pretty hard, especially like it was out of left field. I
Yeah,
mean, you're just watching a cutscene, all of a sudden, his brains are on the screen. It was
yeah.
nuts. I really liked Sean. He was actually probably one of my favorite characters.
People just die. It's
Yeah, it was
crazy.
rough. And honestly, the one scene I was talking about that really sets this chapter apart for me is when they storm the mansion and they have that shot of all of
Yeah.
them lined up in front of the mansion. That is probably my most vivid memory of the game and my favorite moment. It was so satisfying to see them all lined up, ready for the shootout with the mansion to get the Braithwaites.
Yeah.
Fantastic chapter. I honestly loved it, and it. I mean, it did set up the shit with Jack, John's son getting kidnapped, but it was just it was so good. You set up in roads and all that other shit, and honestly, I loved it. I really think it edged out chapter 2 just because of that one scene with the shootout in the mansion. That's
Yeah.
really the only part that set it apart. Otherwise, chapter 2 would have been above.
The shootout at the mansion was like the most the most badass moment of the game.
Yeah.
Really, like there are a few, but like that one was really, really up there.
Yeah, it was.
That chapter definitely does have. I mean, yeah, dude. Like chapter 2, 3, 4, and 6, they just have it all. Like every single chapter, they did not leave you like wanting more.
Yeah, for real.
They were perfect. But nonetheless, that is our list. Honestly, I think our lists are very. I would say they're very good. You had 2 and 3, I had 6 and 4 for different reasons, though. Different strokes for different folks.
Oh yeah. And honestly, like everybody's gonna have different missions that they like.
Yeah.
Some people might have actually liked Gorma the best. Yeah,
I
I don't.
I
You
wish
never know.
them I wish them a very pleasant time in hell if they like that one the best. That ain't for me, brother. That ain't for me.
Out of all of them, yes. I mean, it'd be a little rough to call Gorma your favorite.
Yeah, Gwarma. My name is Gwarma. But
Hope you guys enjoyed, and be sure to subscribe if you did. We'll keep cranking down some videos.